Welcome back to another episode of The Sweet Spot. This is John Sherman from the Four Foundations of Golf. And as always, I'm joined by.
Adam from Adam Young Golf.
So, we're going to do a little mailbag episode. We're going to try and tackle a couple of different topics. Just a reminder to everyone, we actually have a nice library of these at this point. They kind of populate into a spreadsheet for us. But as always, if you do have suggestions or questions that you want us to cover in episodes, you can go to adamyounggolf.com/survey and post it there.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, we got a ton of them. Yeah, we got a nice backlog. And, in between, sometimes Adam and I will have a bigger topic that we want to do or a guest. And then sometimes we found that trying to do these mini episodes where we kind of go through maybe one or two or three topics based on questions is a nice change of pace. So that's what we're going to do today. I'll tell you the reason this was a question someone asked probably months ago. It'd been kind of sitting in my drafts folder in my Gmail. And the reason I wanted to bring it up was I was in Scotland a couple of weeks ago. It was my third year in a row playing golf in Scotland. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. We were playing a match and I hit a decent drive, but I had this like really funny lie and like a huge mound in front of me that I kind of had to elevate the ball over and wasn't really feeling great about the lie and if I could elevate it. And I just thinned the absolute hell out of this shot and it smacked into the mound and kind of torpedoed up in the air and went in the fairway about 100 yards from the hole. And I was 150 yards from the hole, so it didn't go very far. So I walked up to my golf ball, my Titleist Pro V1X, which I'll get into. I switched to that this year. I've never seen this before. The ball had been like ripped, like there was like a flap coming out of it. Have you ever seen that happen to a golf ball before?
I've never struck it that poorly, John.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a earth-shattering thin shot. It kind of looked like maybe this is disgusting and graphic, but if you like slice your thumb on like a scissor or something, and then like a little piece of skin's coming out. It looked like that. So I called my buddies over. I'm like, check this out. And everyone's like, wow, that's crazy. And I didn't know the rule. We were playing a match and I'm like, can I change the ball out? And they were like, yeah, we think you can, but I didn't feel like looking it up. So I'm like, let me just hit the shot. It was 100 yards, perfect full lob wedge for me because I de-lofted the heck out of it. Not that I hit it so far. And I hit it to like 3 feet from the hole, like perfect shot. So I made an epic par, very nice par. Side note, we did switch the ball out on the putt. We did look it up. You are allowed to change a golf ball. I thought you had to wait till the hole was over, but if you have a very badly damaged golf ball, it can't be like a scuff. It needs to be like what happened to me, where the flap of the ball is kind of hanging around. But I thought it was kind of funny. I hit a absolutely perfect shot 3 feet from the hole from 100 yards. The ball flew perfectly the same.
That's how they first found out about dimples, right? Is they used to
Yeah.
use dimple-less golf balls, and then they found out that when it's scuffed up, the ball went farther and straighter, and so then the dimples were effectively controlled scuff marks on the golf ball.
Yeah.
But
I don't
having
know
a flap hanging off is a little different.
Yeah, I think I kinda got maybe lucky with there was a little bit of wind, but I'm not sure if I hit that shot 100 times, what would have happened, but it got me thinking about this question from someone. So they asked it's an important question because we all have to spend money on golf balls. It's the one thing, maybe other than gloves that you're constantly having to replace. And, the question is that, there's a ton of marketing and information out there, but how do you know which ball to play? Does it even matter? um, what's the benefit of premium versus a cheaper ball? And more importantly, the person who reached out to us was like, I'm just a bit confused about the premium balls. There's a TP5X, there's a TP5, and there's, every manufacturer, TaylorMade, Strixon, Titleist, they all have so many different Bridgestone. They have a million different balls. Like, how do you pick? Does it really? And then, the question is, do the marketing claims this is the longest ball, the straightest ball, this one spins the most? Does this actually do anything? Is there a tangible benefit to this? And I wanted to go back. So if you've been listening to the show for a while, we did have an episode with, I believe it was Marty Jertson and Chris Brody from Ping. And Ping is behind Ballnamic, a fitting engine, which they can do because they're not a golf ball manufacturer. And I just wanted to revisit some of the stuff from that episode and kind of some other thoughts and things I've seen about golf balls over the years. I mean, do you feel like it's that big of a difference? Do you really care about what ball you play?
Not massively. I actually got a bunch of golf balls once, and with my GC quad, I hit them all in here. I was going to create a whole video on it. So I got 10 different types of ball, high spinning, low spinning, hit them all to look at the data. And after hitting them all, I found, I mean,
Yeah,
there were
that's
differences for sure, but it's like, okay, the most extreme differences were worth talking about, but each ball itself was just like, not there's not that much of a difference here. However, what I'll say is the launch monitor is only looking at the first part of the flight.
exactly.
And so while that might be different, then it uses algorithms to predict how far it would go. But in reality, the aerodynamics of the ball matter a lot as well, which is what Ballnamic looked at. So they would probably
Yes.
find bigger differences than I did on a launch monitor.
Yeah, so some of the takeaways that we learned from them, because I used to do the same thing. Like I would test, a Pro V1 versus a Pro V1X. I'm like, oh, it only has 50 RPMs of spin difference. Like, who cares? So yeah, what they measure golf balls downrange. They measure initial launch characteristics, but they're also measuring what happens when the ball is at its peak height. And as you said, there are aerodynamic differences. Two premium golf balls could launch exactly the same, let's say with 9,000 RPMs of spin, but based on the wind and other characteristics of your ball flight, they might have up to 800 RPMs of different spin downrange, which can affect trajectory, distance, stopping power.
Do you remember the TaylorMade liquid gel golf?
Thankfully, no.
I think this was like 1999, 2000. Yeah, TaylorMade brought out a golf ball with liquid gel in the middle.
Ooh. It's like
Yeah,
the bubble shaft inside a golf
imagine the
ball.
thing spinning and the liquid
Yeah.
gel inside is spinning, and I don't know what the actual science on that was, but it made me think of that.
There's been some interesting marketing developments over the years, but the hard facts are that so it's kind of like a yes and a no. Like I've been thinking about this, and it's more the bigger question I wanted to discuss is sometimes as golfers we can get really in the weeds on certain things like a shaft or the type of head you're playing. And if you listen to this show, I'm all for club fitting and getting the right equipment. But you do have to take a step back and ask yourself sometimes, is this a little tiny refinement that hopefully adds up with a bunch of other refinements for a handicap production, or is this not that big of a deal? So, when it comes to golf balls, I think the main thing to think about is, should you invest in a premium ball? So, a premium golf ball will have a urethane covering, 3 to 4 layers. All golf balls are solid core now. We're not dealing with wound or balata balls anymore. Versus the budget balls they're usually 2 piece. Sirlin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the cover they're using. So, yeah, there's a difference between those two. But I think if you're a beginner to intermediate player, if you play a noodle ball or some of the budget balls, or if you invested like $55 in I don't know what, I think that's how much some of the upper end of like Pro V1s cost now. Is that going to massively change your game? I don't think so. Like that would be like my answer is like for the beginner to intermediate player, not that big of a deal in my opinion. There's some trade-offs. The cheaper balls won't perform as well in wet conditions. You're not going to get as much spin around the greens. They still go fairly far. I don't think you're going to see a huge drop off in distance. But again, is it going to revolutionize your game? Probably not. But if you're a better player and you care about your game, yeah, I would say that the premium balls give you that maximized distance, the low spin distance off the tee, and then combine that with the stopping power and spin around the green. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds that the budget balls will not do as good of a job for. So I do think for a more experienced, serious player, yeah, you should be investing in a premium golf ball. But here's the question, and that's what this listener asked. Well, there's 20 different kinds. There's Bridgestone, I think. I don't know how many balls they have. It's incredible. PXG is making good golf balls now. LA Golf is making good golf. Like there's all these different manufacturers making good premium balls. And in Balnamic, in their engine, which I trust is quite accurate, I'm going through some of the notes of the original episode. There are instances where some people will pick up 10 to 20 yards in driver distance. Like there could be a big difference in how the ball's spinning and going through the air based on your launch characteristics and the conditions you're playing in. There could be a massive difference in stopping power or how the ball curves through the winds or flyer prevention or workability. There are differences, and they've found up to 20 yards in gains and much different iron and wedge performance. I don't think that's across the board, though. I think those more are outliers. So that's always like, is that 1% of golfers? I have no idea, but it's not going to be everyone. And I looked at like I did a ball fitting with them. And it's only $15 now. And by the way, this is not an ad for Ballnamic. They're not paying me to say this, but I'm going through a report I did a year ago where I put in my launch monitor numbers, driver distance between the 5 balls they picked, less than a yard, driver height, less than a foot, a driver wind score, the same, 7-iron carry within a yard or two, 7-iron workability. Now that was one I put, a preference on, that I don't want to work the ball. So they gave me one that would fly straighter. It didn't have as much side spin on it. But to be honest, there isn't a massive difference between, I'm not going to go through the brands because it's irrelevant, but they gave me 5 different brands. I'm playing a Pro V1X now. I was playing a Snell MTBX for years, but it ran out of USGA compliance. Personally, I can't tell the difference. Maybe I think maybe my driver's going a little bit farther, but I don't know if that's not because I'm swinging faster or not. So there's 2 sides to this coin, where someone might do the fitting. If you have your 7-iron and driver launch monitor numbers, you can input it, and you might see driver distance that's like 230 or 245, or 7-iron stopping power. You might see a big difference than I have. So yes, it's kind of a two double-edged question, is that if you care about this stuff and if you want to choose the right ball, yeah, don't listen to the marketing claims. Like, I think this is the best option out there. Unfortunately, I don't think it's available outside the United States. But doing a ball fitting with a launch, yeah, it's not. But doing a ball fitting with a launch monitor will not tell you the full story. And then, of course, you can bring balls out on the course.
I think the danger people have to be aware of is, they try a new ball, they have a good round with it,
Yeah, yeah.
like 6 shots lower, and they attribute it to the ball. Probably not that. I'd want a year of data before you make meaningful judgments on it, or do a fitting where you're actually seeing the data firsthand.
Yeah, I think they actually checked the site. It used to be $40 for a fitting, but now I think it's 40 for 5 of them and only 15 for one. Golf balls, I think the cheapest premium golf balls you're going to get are like $35 now, depending on where you go, and they go up to 50 or 55. I think it's worth the $15 to throw the numbers in there, if you care. Now, and there's differing levels. So I'll give you another example. PJ Tour players, for example, like Mackenzie Hughes, he told me that he was playing a Titleist ball. So Titleist makes a lot of balls that are only available to players on pro tours. And he was playing a ball for a while that just spun more. He wanted more spin. And eventually, like when he looked at his launch monitor numbers, when he's not hitting his driver well, his spin rate was getting into the thousands with his driver. So that's costing him distance. So he worked with Titleist, which is the ball he plays, and he worked with Ping, who's the company who he plays their equipment, and changed his driver, changed back to a different Titleist ball. I don't know if it was the left dash one. They have all these various balls that tour players can choose from. Now, in that instance, that could be worth $500,000. It could be the difference between winning a golf tournament or not, or finishing, getting your tour card or not. Like, there's a lot on the line. It's kind of like F1 racing. Like, if they figure out like that 10th of a second in the engine change or aerodynamics, that's going to be a big change for them, because it's a zero-sum game and their competition is fierce. So for a PGA Tour player, like, making these small refinements is a big deal. For people listening to this show, playing a Saturday morning round with their buddies, is it that big of a deal? Like, probably not. Probably not is for most people, I would say. But
Who was it who said, why do you want a ball that spins back more? You never get it to the hole anyway.
Oh, that was from the Harvey Penick. That was a quote
Oh,
from Tommy Armour from like the 1940s. That was in the Harvey Penick book episode we did. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I've been thinking about it and like, yeah, I tried, like, I chose the ball that the fitting engine gave me that was the best one for me, the Pro V1X. I'm playing it because I do care about these things. Is it going to change my scores by over a stroke? No. Maybe there's miniature refinements in there. So yeah, I think there's all these things that golfers potentially could get tripped up with. And my view on equipment is, get it done if you have the budget and the time, get it done right the first time and then just kind of stick with it. I don't think you need to play like 8 different balls and look for the perfect one with like wind, unless you're like a serious tournament player or if you're just like maybe an engineering type person, you love this stuff. But yeah, I guess the other thing I wanted to discuss, and this is where things get a little trickier, is the direct to consumer market with golf balls. So there are manufacturers who sell direct to consumer at a lower price, and they are selling urethane golf balls. It's a good thing and a bad thing because I'm going to quote, my Golf Spy has done a lot of great work over the last 5+ years testing a ton of golf balls, not only for performance, but they actually like cut them open and will look for irregularities inside the golf ball. And they found some crazy stuff, even from big manufacturers. And one of the quotes that came from them, I'm paraphrasing here, is that anyone can make a really good golf ball once, but it's really hard to do it all the time. So you do have to be careful above and beyond like these tests that Ping is doing, and even my Golf Spy, where they're testing like a dozen balls. You are paying essentially for access to manufacturing. So the big guns, Titleist, Bridgestone, Srixon, Callaway, TaylorMade are either, I think Titleist has their own manufacturing facilities in the United States, but there's a ton of manufacturing facilities in Korea. And the bigger companies get the best manufacturing lines. Their quality assurance is better. I'm not going to name names, but there have been direct to consumer companies that they just don't get as access to the same manufacturing. So the quality control is not as good. So they might make some golf balls that are really good that perform just the same as the Pro V1X in testing, but they might make, I don't know, 5, 10, 20, I don't know what the number is, but a certain amount of golf balls coming out of that facility will be somewhat defective. They will not be perfectly round on the inside. They even caught Callaway in this, and Callaway invested a ton of money in making it better. So I will say that the only benefit to going with maybe a bigger name in the premium market is more for quality control.
do you remember the Wilson True ball? Again, this is about 2005, something like
Vaguely, maybe. I don't remember it
yeah. Well,
specifically.
when I was doing my university degree in the material science lectures, we did things like smash open a few club heads, and it was very scary. Maybe things have changed since 2005, but we would. I remember smashing open a. I shouldn't even say the brand just in case we get sued, but it was two of the same club head
Yeah,
bought from the same shop, and the difference in the thickness of the metal was like that's not the same club when you smash it open. And with golf balls, we did a test where from like 20 feet, we rolled it down a stimp meter on the exact same line every single time, and then we put a little notch on the skirting board as to where the ball hit. And these balls were missing like 3 foot left, 3 foot right, just because they weren't balanced. And then he talked us through the manufacturing process of, if you've got 3 different cores or 3 different layers in a golf ball when they're being set. So you put it into liquid, and then when that is hardening, the core will sink and it'll create a heavier side, which is why Bryson does that whole,
the Epsom
floating the
salt
golf
thing.
ball in
Yeah.
salt and then marking the dot. Even Dave Peltz, rest in peace, did that stuff back in 2001 with his putting Bible, or probably was it 99 putting Bible, something like that.
I mean, it's definitely a thing. There is quality control issues in any industry in manufacturing. Like even the shaft industry, Woody Lashin is, I can go back to the episodes we've had for him. Like, what's the difference between an aftermarket shaft and a stock shaft? Well, shafts are handmade and a more expensive shaft will have tighter tolerances for performance. And the way he always said it to me is like, let's say you had two shafts, one was kind of mass produced and the other one was, more premium. If you broke both of them and ordered new ones, the chances of getting the same exact shaft with the premium one are way, 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 way higher versus a stock shaft. It might be a bit different. Now, again, is this going to change your score by 5 strokes? Probably not, but you should know about these things if you care about it. So that's why I'm trying to like be balanced on both sides of the coin here is that yeah, golf balls are important. Like it's the one thing that we always play with. Premium balls are definitely better than budget balls, especially for better players who have more strike quality, better strike quality, and all that stuff. And there are differences between all the premium balls, potentially big differences based on your launch characteristics or based on mine. Very little that I could see or was not noticeable to me when I play. Or maybe I'm just not picking up on it because it's so minor. So yeah, I think take everything I said with a grain of salt. If you're interested in doing the ball fitting, go for it. But the marketing claims are kind of I don't want to say BS, but for one manufacturer to say like, "Oh, our ball goes the longest and the straightest," or this has the tightest, spin tolerance around the greens, or compression was another one that Ballnamic talked about. Yeah, the compression stuff is kind of nonsense. They found out like you could have a low compression ball and someone with high swing speed, it might be better for them or low. It's not, a like the grip study with Liam Mucklow. Like one grip size doesn't fit everyone perfectly. Certain golfers react differently to it.
They
So
can also they can also manipulate the data in terms of they say, well,
yeah,
this is the highest spinning golf ball, and then in quotes, it's like for someone with 65.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think for $15, if you have your launch monitor data, probably worth it to give a look, just so you can buy the right golf ball for yourself. And then, you take a big step back and say, okay, that part of my game is over. I don't need to worry about my golf ball because, the things that are really going to drive scoring are what? Are our big three of ball striking, the decisions you make on the course with strategy, your mental state, all that stuff moves the needle way more. I always say equipment is like 10 to 15% of the game. If you get it right, you give yourself the best chance. If you get it really wrong, then you're making golf harder for yourself. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on golf balls. And then buyer, not trying to like throw shade on the direct to consumer industry, but you can look at the My Golf Spy work they've done over the years and the testing. Quality assurance in the golf ball industry is a serious problem. So there is some peace of mind with going with a more reputable company if you want all of your golf balls to be exactly the same. And if they're not perfectly the same, like, yeah, you might have some shots that go further offline because the ball's not, the inside of the ball's not as it should be. Yeah, that's golf balls in a nutshell. And you can go back to that episode we did with Ballnamic. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago at this point.
The vast majority of my amateur career, I used yellow Dunlop DDHs, and everybody
Nice.
used to make fun of me for it. And I was like, well, they spin the lowest, so that's why I'm so straight. They go high, they launch high, so yeah, you don't get any stopping power from spin, but these balls are coming down like this, and I'm hitting 2 clubs less into the green, so I was happy with those. They're super cheap. It's basically a money thing. I couldn't afford golf balls back then. There's no way I was paying. I mean, back then it was like $3 a Pro V1. I think it's double that now, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a creature of habit. So when I find something that I'm comfortable with, I stick with it. That's why I played that Snell MTBX ball for like 5 or 6 seasons and it finally just ran out of compliance. And they just weren't making the same exact ball anymore. So I went into the fitting engine, and it was between I think Bridgestone and the Titleist Pro V1X, and I just went with the Pro V1X. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to start tinkering around with it. I'll probably stay with that ball for a while. It's not something I put a lot of mental energy into. Like some golfers, you see people who are like true gearheads and they're like, oh, it must be my putter shaft or the ball or this or that. And you're like, not really. I mean, that could be like 5% of it, but the rest of it's how you're delivering it.
Yeah. Yeah, I see people hitting it like 20 millimeters off the toe and looking for a new ball, a new shaft or something. Like, maybe you should figure out how to hit the center first or reasonably close to it.
Yeah. I mean, golfers played really well and shot great scores
That's the
with
thing. Yeah,
with with
when people are looking,
Balatas and yeah, and like wound golf balls that
yeah,
were not as good as today's golf balls, they curved more, they didn't go as far, and people found a way to shoot great scores with those balls. But yeah, I mean, listen, I like stacking all the odds in my favor too. So that's the other side.
Yeah, yeah. I really want to get a bunch of super old clubs. We did that once. I probably shouldn't mention this, but in my home golf club, there used to be these old relics up in the rafters, like as show pieces.
Hmm.
I think one of the kids stole a bag of what are they called, mashy niblicks and all
Oh
these
yeah,
clubs, and we went out and played with them. And it was yeah, I probably shouldn't have told that, but I might go to jail now. It wasn't me who did it. That's honest. I just hit a shot with it. But yeah, they're it's yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, people were shooting under par with mashy niblicks and gutter perch your balls on dodgy greens. So when you're blaming your equipment, yes, equipment is important, but it's never well, I'm not gonna say it's never gonna override the player itself, but the
it
player
accommodates the
biggest.
player. I think is yeah, it's an accommodation. It's a efficiency, a refinement, but it's not the big thing. And that's why I wanted to bring up the golf balls. Like, yeah, golf balls are important, but they're all pretty good at this point. And you want to take a big step back if you're a golfer who wants to improve and shoot lower scores, which is why you're likely listening to this show. My point of bringing it up was like, you take a big step back and be like, is this really moving the needle that much? And you're like, yeah, maybe a little bit, but I covered my basis. Now I'm going to move on to the bigger stuff that I know will push my scores in the right direction. Get your refinements in place, but the big stuff is what we try to cover on the show is what's going to move the needle the most and keep most of your focus and attention there. And also your accountability to it, versus blaming external factors like a golf ball or the shaft on your putter or even a playing partner, whatever it is that day. That's not the path to becoming a better golfer. It's kind of taking more ownership over things that are more within your control. All
So
right.
we want
That's,
the
yeah.
common myths. So
Well, yeah,
someone asked
you
what
got,
common myths have been proven wrong by science or data. So not all of these have been proven wrong, but I think, the latest knowledge has called into question some things that we held true for a long time. So an example of that, I've got a bunch of stuff here, but rate of closure is a big one. We've had several episodes on it. Rate of closure really is like how many degrees per second the club face is going from open to closed.
Mhm.
I think what most people are really referring to when they talk about it is amount of closure over a given space. So say 8 inches before impact to 8 inches after, something like that. I mean, choose your measurement there. But if the face is going, for example, if the face is going from 90 degrees open to 90 degrees closed, versus you've got another player who's going from zero open to zero close, just staying very square through impact, which
Yeah.
pretty much be impossible.
Yeah. How would you do
Um,
that?
yeah, you'd have to put some weird talks onto it. But, the theory would state the lower the rate of closure, the better for in terms of at least accuracy. Makes perfect logical sense. However, there, to my knowledge, has not been any evidence showing this to be true. There are caveats to that as well. I know some instructors who would argue against the current research, but I know Phil Cheetham, I believe, I'm 99% certain Phil Cheetham was the one who did the
We got to
rate.
get, you know what? I'm going to write his name down on my notepad here because I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
we have to get I met Phil at the PGA show. I know he's like the 3D guy. We got to get him on the show. I'm writing that on my notepad now and circling it. Continue, sorry.
Yeah. So he looked at handle twist velocity, which is basically how much are you twisting the grip,
Mhm.
the speed that you're twisting the grip through impact. And he looked at the correlation between that and accuracy with professional golfers, because handle twist velocity is going to relate strongly, at least you'd hope, to club head twist velocity. Obviously, the shaft does bend
Yeah, it
and twist
follows
itself
what
as
you're
well.
doing.
But
Yeah.
yeah, you'd hope and think that it'd be very highly correlated. And I think since, even Sasha has looked at rate of closure at the club head, and there's almost no correlation, or at least in the studies I've seen, there is no correlation between that and accuracy.
So
So
the
you can have,
assumption would be the lower rate of closure would be more accurate and more rate of closure would be more inaccurate and there's no correlation whatsoever.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what makes logical sense. That's what everybody thinks. That's what people have
Yeah.
thought for years.
Yeah. Keep your hands passive and don't rotate the club face at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you put a gun to my head and I say, right, if you're going to have to teach one thing, a high rate of closure or a low rate of closure, gun to my head, I would still go towards lower rate of closure just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's so logical. But then you
Sure.
have to step back and say, well, there's not really any evidence. And I mean, the caveats to that would be this was looked at with professional golfers.
Mhm.
You and there may be situations where if you look at an amateur population sample, there may be more extremes within that. And then it may correlate. There was a correlation between rate of closure and I want to say how like open or close or square a player's shoulders were or body was at impact. So say, for example, if you look at maybe a tiger, he was kind of very square at impact with his shoulders. He wasn't hugely rotational like has been popular over the last 10 years. Tiger was kind of very square at impact and maybe even a higher handle position as well. So, the club coming in a little bit more vertical. And I believe that correlated strongly to a higher handle twist velocity. Whereas someone like a Jim Furyk, who was super open, his chest is like 40 degrees open at impact, his right arm, most people will call it stuck. It's really far behind his body at that point. Handle maybe a little lower. That was correlated to a lower rate of closure, lower handle twist velocity. But again, when you adjust for a bunch of variables like how far a player hits it, I think there was no correlation. So more information needs to be done. I know I've talked to people like Chris Como. He still thinks there's something to it. I don't think there's that much data to it yet. But then we talk to guys like Sasho, and he just says, look, there's no relationship there, even with kind of putting level as well. So don't hold me to that, but it's something to explore for sure. It's something that makes logical sense that has kind of been um, again, proven is a strong word, but debunked a little bit by modern science. Any comments on that one, John?
I
Yeah,
mean, it's not
thoughts
something
about that?
I don't really think about it much because I just would think about more face control, but I don't think club face that is the same thing as like face control because that would be more of where the face is pointing at that impact moment. I'm not really thinking about it as it relates to like before and after.
Yeah, so you think it would relate to the variability of
Yeah, like
face
is it like
direction at
8
impact.
degrees open like in the last position and then it's, 1 degree right of your target at impact and then 8 degrees closed afterwards? Is that kind of what it is? I don't
Yeah,
fully yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
if you imagine that player, say for example, super extreme, an inch before impact, they're
Yeah,
90
yeah,
degrees
and they're just
open.
whipping
1
it
inch
right
after,
through.
they're,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
90
yeah.
degrees closed. Well, if that ball would move just a fraction of an inch, they're going to have a wildly different
Yeah.
face.
So it makes sense. It would like my assumption would be like, wow, you need to be a really athletic, way above average eye-hand coordination to manage a high rate of closure versus someone who didn't, which again, that's an assumption and it sounds like it just doesn't play out that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we need more data sets, I suppose, looking at more amateur golfers and see if there's other things that correlate with it. But like I said, Sasha seems to think there's not. I'm undecided on it. I think I have to follow the data at the moment. But I mean, what you can say is, like, if someone keeps leaving the face open all the time, increasing their rate of closure is going to help them close the face. So it can definitely influence patterns. If you're a
Sure,
slicer of
that
the
makes
ball,
sense. Yeah.
then it can help you. But in terms of the variability at impact, so, a number I look at on the GC quad is obviously face angle, the average, but I look at the standard deviation as well
Yeah, is it
and
5
swap the
open
club.
and 1 open and then
Yeah, and a pro for those listening, a pro tends to have maybe a 1 degree standard deviation. So they'll have X face at impact. By the way, it doesn't have to be square. Oh, we should talk about that one. It doesn't have to be square at impact to play elite level golf. But whatever their average face angle is, their standard deviation is 1 degree either side of that. You're looking at good amateurs might be 2 degrees, and then a bad amateur might be 3 or 4. There's really
yeah,
not
and
that much
that's and
as much of a difference.
that that is why we have drives going 60 yards right. And that's why we have lost golf balls. We all know face control if you listen to this show. But yeah, I think the other point do you have to have everyone keeps saying I got to square the face at impact, which kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies when I hear that now because that could result in very bad shots.
Yeah, I never think.
Not enough information.
Yeah, I never think of my face being square at impact. I think of what I need more of. So if my ball is going left, I need more of an open face at impact. If my ball is going right, I need more of a closed face at impact. I never think of it being square. And for most people, if your club face were truly square at impact, you probably wouldn't hit your most optimal shots because
Unless you had a zeroed out swing path, of
exactly,
course.
which very
Yeah,
few
which
people
no one
do.
has.
Yeah. So if your path, your club path is out to in, which most golfers would be able to relate to, say you're swinging left across the ball as a right-handed golfer, if you're doing that by 6 degrees, then you'd actually need the face to be 3 degrees closed to the target to make that function well. In fact, it would vary with what club you're using. It may need to be slightly more closed with a driver and less closed with a wedge. But yeah, about half, we say half the path is usually the goal we look for with a 7 iron. So if you swung 10 degrees out to in, I wouldn't recommend it, but your face would need to be 5 degrees closed to the target to make that work. If you had a square face, if you swung 10 degrees out to in and you had a square face, you'd never be able to keep the ball on the planet. It would just be, it'd be a complete swipe across it. Actually, you wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to keep it on the planet because it would go so short.
Well, it would just be like with driver, for example, it would launch a little left of your target and then just slice like crazy.
Well, 12 yards for every degree open at 240, so you're looking about 100, 120 yards right of
Yeah.
curvature if you did that.
Yeah, I don't think people when they say like, "Oh, I need a square face and impact," are really maybe thinking about that. But when you actually look into the physics of it, like the only players that should have a square face and impact are ones who have swing paths that are not deviating from neutral that much. They're one into out or one out to in, and that's where you get like a very tight little baby fade and baby draw or a straight shot.
Well, I've seen lots of people shoot themselves in the foot with that philosophy because they're so obsessed with everything has to be square. Like if
Yeah, their
you're a
stance.
hooker of
Yeah,
the golf
yeah,
ball,
yeah.
if I set my face up square, I would
Mm.
not be able to play golf to the level I do. I can guarantee you that. I need that face to feel like it. That leading edge is going to be 5 to 10 degrees open, something like that at address, because that's what I need to not make the ball go left. Now, you could also change things in the swing. Yes. In fact, there was another question by someone. They said, what is the ideal point in the swing to open or close the club face? Is it at address, at the top of the swing, or at impact? So I assume they're talking about, if they're missing left, they need to open the face more. Where should I do that?
Mm,
I mean,
that's a
the
good
answer to
question.
that
Yeah,
is it
I don't
has to
know.
be more open at impact is the
Yeah,
definite thing. Now, the non-definite thing of that is, well,
at what
how do
point?
you achieve a more open impact face at impact? You could just change your grip position. You could just set up with the face open at address and then grip it. It's a roundabout way of changing the grip. Or you could be more mechanical. You could do something with the wrist, feel like it's more cupped in the backswing to open it. Or you could feel like through impact, if I want to keep the face open through impact through a swing feel, I almost feel like a karate chop through impact as opposed to a table tennis topspin if I want to close the face. So there's no optimal answer to that. I suppose the optimal answer would be to test. If
Yeah,
you
you need to find out if is it set up? Like, do I need to really start myself in that direction to really exaggerate the opposite to open it early? Or as you said, like in transition or later in the swing. These are things that I think about differently throughout my season based on my ball flight for sure.
yeah, and when I'm giving lessons to people, whether that's online or live, if they're suffering with the pattern, so they're slicing everything, I know I need to close their face more in order to make that slice less. Yes, we can talk about the path separately as well, but we need to get that face more squared up to the path or more closed to the target to get it on target. And then I look at what are the options here. I could say, right, well, if they got a super weak grip, we might address that first. Maybe their grip is fine, but they're cupping their wrist a lot at the top. Maybe they have a few face openers. Maybe they got a weak grip and a cupped face at the top, and then they're not supinating through impact. To which we say, well, let's work on probably the biggest one and let's implement them all into our game. If you got an hour, do 20 minutes of all three, training them into your swing, and then play with the focus that does the best for you, performs the best for you. And I know that might sound complicated, but to me, in my game, to make this simple, I use the address position to change my outcome. For the vast majority of my game, 90% of the time, if my ball's going left, I'll open the face at address. As simple as that. So it doesn't have to be complicated. But I have all the other tools at my disposal as well. So yeah, just test these things. But I think where most golfers go wrong is they try and work on things that are not correlated as strongly to the face position at impact. So they'll say, "Oh, I'm slicing off to the right, leaving my face open," and then they might change. I don't know. They might say, "Keep my head down" or something like that. And it's like, well, that doesn't even relate to it really. So yeah, making sure the intervention that you make or the tool you use actually relates to face position at impact. But yeah, it doesn't need to be square at impact. I've even seen there was a tool the other day where it trains you, you lock it in place. So you set the tool up so it points towards your target, and then you go and put the club head in it, and you see whether your
Yikes.
face is square or not. And
Yikes.
I'm like, for most people, that's going to make them worse
It's a
because a
horrible,
slicer,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
slicer doesn't need a square face. In fact,
No.
most slicers, right? The average slicer who comes to me might be 6 degrees out to in, and their face is 1 or 2 degrees closed, right? That'll produce decent shots sometimes, but the average pattern is going to be more right. If you make that player's face more square at impact, they're going to
Done.
perform worse. Yeah,
You're
they're going to hit
done.
it even more right. So don't think of things in terms of I have to be square. Think of things in terms of I have to be more left or I have to be more right or more open or more closed, depending on what you need more of based on your ball flight. Simple algorithms. If you're missing left, open the face more. If you're missing right, close the face more. Find a way to close the face.
Most golfers are living on one side of, they're swinging left or they're swinging right. And yeah, if you're swinging left, usually it's open is the issue and you need to close it down. And if you're swinging right and drawing the ball, my cue when I used to play a bigger draw was I loved thinking about an open club face throughout my entire swing because that started the ball right of my target. So square, I probably closer to square now, but like that was all I was thinking about for years as my swing path changes. Open, 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 open to start the ball right of the target, not square. But it's, I'm sure there are people who, and this is a relevant discussion with myths in general, is that there have been people who think square and for whatever reason that intention happened to match up well with something they were doing, even if that's not what they were actually doing. But I would consider that more of an outlier versus what we just discussed is finding, if your the ball's slicing right, you need to get the face pointing more left at impact, not square. So
Well,
it
feel is
goes
not
it
real.
goes both ways. Yeah, exactly. Feel
Feel is not
sometimes
real.
sometimes you have the totally wrong feel but it actually works for you.
Yeah, for me, like if you ask me where am I trying to strike on the face, where am I intending, or what's my aim on the club face, I'm trying to strike more towards the heel. Because if I don't think of anything, I will tend to strike the toe. So when I go out with the intention to hit more towards the heel, that's when my most flush shots are coming from. So, without good data, if I didn't know, because I see my quad all the time, I see the numbers, it says zero centered, or I use face spray, foot spray on the face to check it. But if I didn't have that, go back 50 years ago and you ask me, where's your sweet spot? I might tell you, oh, it's very close to the shank. And so that's why feel is not real. We have to get good forms of feedback.
Mhm.
Well, I say we have to. You just have to know what you need more of in order to achieve the desired goal. So I might not even know what my face is. I don't care. I don't even look at it when I'm on the quad. All I know is if I hit that ball left, I'm opening the face for the next one until it's calibrated. Which leads to common myths that have been proven wrong by science and data. Old ball flight laws. The ball finishes where the face is pointing. That's something that a lot of people have said in the past and still continue to say. But it's not true. The ball doesn't finish where the face is pointing in most cases. It's complex mix of path and face and distance and spin loft that produces where the ball finishes. But the idea that the ball starts on the path as well, it feels true because if you ask a golfer, swing more to the right, they will tend to start the ball more to the right as well. because when we swing more to the right, we also open the face with it, or we also drag the face more that direction. But it's not actually the path that is causing the ball to start more right or more left. It's more the face angle. Or to be more accurate with that statement, face angle is attributed to probably
It's like
75.
I think it's 65 to 80% based on law.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The lower the loft, the more the face is an influence. So I think
Yeah.
Pelt said it's 87% of the initial launch with a putter is the face angle. And with a wedge, high spin loft, it may drop down to about 60%. When you reduce friction, it goes closer to the face again. Increased friction goes closer to the path. So there's a complex mix of stuff. But it's interesting, right? We dive into the weeds. But again, it's like, well, how do I make this functional? If your ball's going left, open the face more.
Face. Yeah.
If the ball's going right, close the face more. And if your ball's going on target and you don't like the amount that it's curving to get there, then change your path.
Yeah, I mean, the way we've talked about it is curvature is more going to be about changing your swing path in the long run. You could fix that in the short term with face angle, but if you want less curvature, you're going to need to neutralize the swing path. And if you want more shots on target, not going way left or way right, then that's a face angle issue. And there's obviously some in between talk you can, yeah, because again, you have the 10-degree into out player. You can make them functional with an open club face that's 5 degrees right at the target. But in the long run, you'll want them to get that path closer to 4, 5, 6 degrees, not 10, because it's just harder
Depends
to
who you
play
listen
golf.
to, yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like there's there's caveats upon caveats that don't kill us, but that's an easier way to think about it is curve, swing path, starting way right, way left, face angle, and they do work together, obviously.
I actually did we did the shaping podcast. I did a test the other day. I hit a bunch of shots, making sure everything drew. So I had a 6 degree into out path, hitting big draws into the target. And then I hit as neutral as I could. I think the path was like 1 degree into out on average. And the neutral was my most accurate and consistent outcome as well. So that's why I play with that.
Yeah, I literally cannot draw the golf ball anymore. I
No,
just can't do it. It's over. It's totally gone.
just aim your body right and shut the face.
I don't. I'm playing. It's just I'm hitting better shots. Like I think I'm like a straight
Well,
slash
you're an
fade
example of
player now.
yeah, you're an example of a player who neutralized more, same as me, and got better as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened here, but I cannot see a draw on the golf course anymore. I think it's fully over. I think I've like put it in the graveyard, unless I really need to do it. Even then, I'm like, it's kind of gone. It's funny.
Well, you could do it, but it might not be the optimal thing for you.
Yeah, it's just I feel like sometimes in golf you have to like that's where it's led me to, and for better or worse, like I don't think I'm going back to being a draw player. Not that I wanted to or tried to. It just kind of worked out that way. And I'm hitting really good iron shots again, and my ball striking's been really great again the last month or two. And it's just kind of like this straightish falling right ball flight, especially with the driver too. So I'm just kind of going with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hit a few fades as well in that test and hit them pretty well. They were a little shorter, but hit them pretty well. Definitely struck it better ground contact because, I mean, it makes logical sense. The more you swing left, the more it moves the low point forwards. Attack angle gets a little steeper. Dynamic loft gets a little less. So, strike quality is a touch better. Drive for show, putt for dough. That's another one that's been proven wrong. Science and data. So, Mark Brody, strokes gained. What do you have to say on this stuff, John?
Well, I mean, it's just so like people will still argue like crazy about this on social media. And I guess what I always get back to is that who are these putters that people keep talking about? When everyone's like, it's all about the putter. I'm like, I play with some great golfers, like really good, like +2, +4, +5 players all the time in tournaments. I don't see anyone draining putts left and right. I see a lot of two putts. Yeah, I see a lot of 5, 6, 7 footers going in, but I'm not seeing someone showing up to the course and just like blasting 15 footers in the hole left and right. So this idea that like you can overcome anything with your putter in golf and it's all about it's just Mark, it's 15% of the game. And I feel like I'm a pretty good putter at times, and I don't show up, and it's more about, limiting 3 putts, but yeah, I'd still say to anyone, like, the simple thing that I think about it now is that you wanna play your best golf and shoot your lowest scores, and you have the time and motivation to do it. The way I think about it is you build your game around hitting more greens in regulation, and that is 2 things. That means hitting it well off the tee, farther in play, and being a really good iron and approach player. And that just makes golf way, way, way easier, and you don't have to rely on short game magic because again, I've seen all the statistics. I've looked at ShotScope's database, Arcos, and I these players do not exist who are getting up and down 90% of the time and draining putts all the time. Like they're not the norm. They're an extreme, extreme exception. Lower
It
scores
happens.
is mostly dictated by ball striking.
It happens, or that myth happens because when a player plays well, or when they score well, or when a tournament is won by a professional that week, yes, they've putted well.
Yeah, it's the
And so
best
it's very
putters of the best ball strikers.
yeah,
That's generally who
exactly.
it is.
But it's like you have to ask, well, how controllable is it? Or is there a lot of I don't want to say luck because people think luck is all hooey, but the K
Variability would be the better term.
yeah, there's general chaos, which is, I suppose, ordered randomness in putting. Like you could, with a stimp meter, roll a ball towards the same hole from 10 feet, and some of them are going to miss because it hits a blade of grass early on and
Yeah. Yes.
gets knocked offline, or maybe what we talked about earlier, the ball's not being fully balanced. I think that's become less of an issue as as green quality's got better, but on the tour, we're not playing on those greens on tour.
No, people are playing on greens that have been trampled. They're not rolled in the morning half the time. Like it's very expensive to get fast and true greens. And you're talking about like elite country clubs who have that budget to do that. And most of the courses that the rest of us are playing, the greens aren't going to roll that true. They're going to be slower. They're trampled on by a bunch of people. So yeah, it's harder to make putts because of that.
Yeah. Some days those random bounces and where the ball gets knocked offline, sometimes they'll go in your favor and it gets knocked online. And then sometimes they all go against you. So that's why there's such big swings from day to day with putting. That's why you have to look with putting. You can't take one round and say, I hold every 10-footer today. That should be my
Yeah, well,
expectation.
that's what people argue. They're like, well, I broke 80 because my putter. I'm like, yeah, but you'd break 80 50% of the time if you could drive it and hit your irons better. Like, not when your putter gets hot. Like, that's the difference. I honestly think that the drive for show, putt for dough is a psyop by good ball strikers because every person you've ever heard say, oh, it's all about the short game. It's all about, I work on my short game all the time. It's these tour players. It's like, yeah, that's nice that you get to work on your short game all the time because you already drive it 300 yards on a string and hit your irons like a god. And then have the luxury to spend hours on your short game because you do this for a living. So most of the people giving that advice already have great long games, is what I've found.
It's kind of like I would relate it to poker a lot. It's like if you play the odds, if you play the math of poker, in the long term, you're gonna come out up. Similar, if you yes, working on your putting is important. You want to be a good putter, but you're gonna have wild swings from day to day just on where the cards lay. You can't control what comes out on the flop or the river or the other
Yeah,
one.
it's hard to, I mean, I'll be honest with everyone, like I'm a fairly good putter. Like I don't really practice my putting that much.
Hey, I've
I
been
really
putting well recently as well.
yeah. I really don't. Like I just kind of figured out the green reading thing, my speed control. I have a little system, but I don't go to the course and grind with my putter for hours, and I two putt a lot and I my putter gets hot sometimes. I've invested way, way, way more time into my driver and irons, and that's why I've become a much better player. If I spent that equivalent time on my wedges and putter, no chance I'd be playing at this level or staying here. Just not possible. I can't show up to all these different golf courses and different layouts and tournaments and conditions and not shoot the same scores without having a better long game than short game. It would just be impossible.
To do the whole sweet spot thing and look at the other side of it, I would say that in terms of return on time invested,
That's the
sometimes
big
it can be
caveat.
more
Yes,
important or easier to make bigger strides in your game with short game stuff. Like
$100%.
if you give me 10 minutes, so you give me an hour to practice a day before a tournament, I'm going to be doing a lot more short game. My long game is pretty stable from day to day, but getting the feel of the greens, understanding how much they're breaking, things like that, seeing how they spin when you hit them with chip shots, that can be important. An hour spent on that can be very worthwhile, but in the long term, your long game is going to be the biggest factor there.
Yeah, it's I think of it in terms of marginal gains. So you can quickly shave some strokes from your putter by reducing three putts. If you never, a lot of golfers don't practice putting at all. And I have for years. I did work on that more. And I feel like I don't need to do that work as much anymore. But yeah, you can get a bigger return on your time invested with your wedges and putter quickly versus the long game. The long game is more time, more effort, but it's a higher upside and longer sustaining gains in your scoring potential. Whereas short game is more maintenance and getting to a certain point where you have a level of proficiency. And then once you reach that level, the upside starts to go away with more time invested. Can't say that for every single golfer, but I think that's a really good rule of thumb to think about. So if you have a lot of time and you're willing to work on your golf game in the long run, getting swing lessons, working on your ball striking, all that stuff is going to like you want to break 80 all the time, like that's going to be like your biggest path forward. You don't have as much time and you want to break 190, cleaning up the three putts, the duff chips, and like learning how to just hit some straightforward wedge shots around the green and just getting better speed control. You could easily drop 5, even 10 strokes there. But again, you reach that point where you're like, okay, I've hit that level. Now going beyond that is way, way, way harder. That's how I kinda think about it, but again, yeah, everyone has their own situation, their time commitment, their ability level. Some people like working on the short game more if you like that, yes, but it's not up for debate anymore. People still wanna argue it like scoring is more determined by your tee shots and approach shots than it is by inside 50 yards.
The difference between you and a pro is long game. If you want to beat a pro, you're never going to beat them tee to green, but you
No,
might beat them on a 10-foot putt.
that's exact I put that scenario in my book. I'm like, the easiest way to illustrate this is that if you took a 15 handicap and a Tour Pro and you started at 3 feet, would you see much difference? No. Go to 10 feet. Yeah, Tour Pro is going to start knocking in some more, obviously, if they're randomized putts, but they'll two putt a lot. Move out to wedges, start seeing more difference. 100 yards, bigger difference. 150. Oh boy, the 15 handicap's not even getting to the green. They're chunking shots, whereas the Tour player is hitting it on the green all the time. 200 yards, wow, this is not even the same player. 300 yards. The point is, the further you get away from the hole, like skill becomes more of a separating factor. And that's a pretty good rule of thumb to think about golf and scoring potential.
We also hit more of those long shots as well. I know everybody says, "Oh, but you hit 36 putts around." It's like, yeah, 18 of
No,
those are from one
yeah,
foot or gimmies,
exactly. There's no
so they're not.
separation there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure we'll get 50 angry emails about that, but and I used to, when I first started writing about golf, when I first started blogging, I was still regurgitating all of the short game stuff. I was so wrong. And when I came across Mark's work, I was like, this is ridiculous. And then as my game changed and I kept looking into it, I'm like, nope, he was right. He was right. And I needed to change my game to accommodate that. And that was the path forward.
Yeah. By the way, we're not saying putting is irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. It's still important. It's just you can't say that like, oh, the make or break of your rounds are always going to be with your putter. Like it's just not true. Like yes, you can throw away a ton of strokes with your putter and three putt a ton, but you can also you're not going to do the equivalent of topping your drive or hitting it out of bounds with a 3 foot putt. Like you're not going to accidentally hit it 40 feet and off the green. Like it just you could
Yeah.
do that with your irons and driver though. Like the damage you can inflict and the advantage you can give yourself is way bigger than putting.
Well, I'm an example of it, right? Last year playing to a +3 handicap level whilst having the yips, and my 15 handicap buddy who was actually putting. He was gaining strokes on me with the putter. Yeah, I was beating him by 10, 15 shots every time we went out. So
Yeah, I think you and me are perfect examples of this. Both of us have some form of yips, me with wedges around the green and you with putting, and we're both plus handicaps because we seem to hit the ball quite well off the tee and with irons. Now, I would love to fix that problem, but if I had the yips of my driver or was struggling with that, like no chance I'm a plus handicap. None.
right, last one we'll go with perfect practice makes perfect. You hear this
Mm.
mantra given all the time. So you've got to practice in the exact perfect way. So stick alignment, sticks down, don't make any errors, practice exactly as you want to hit it. That's been the mantra for years, but it's just all the motor learning science shows it's just not true. I mean, I've done studies where if I ask people to hit the center of the face over and over again, practicing in the perfect way, and then I ask another group to try and hit toe, hit heel, they're not practicing in the ideal way or perfect way. They're not practicing what they want yet. When you retest them and say, right, I want all of you to try and hit the center now, it's the ones who practiced in the differential practice way, the imperfect way, they're actually better than the ones who practice perfectly. So throw in variations there. It doesn't have to be all of your practice, but throw in some variations, some controlled variables or variations. Even, we talk about throw the alignment stick away occasionally. Yes, it can be valuable to put it down now and again, but try and practice with doing routines like you would on the golf course, because there's context as well. You don't have an alignment stick with you on the golf course, so you need to learn how to practice without it. I think also, practicing the idea of perfection that held me back for a long time years ago. The idea that there was a perfect swing, that if I just hit certain positions that look beautiful, then all my problems would go away. Tiger was my model. I used to freeze frame his swing on video, go frame by frame by frame, and then get in the mirror and try and copy his positions. It just didn't have the effect on my game that I wanted. If anything, it started to cause issues in my game. And the irony of all of it is, since I've allowed my swing to be swing my swing, which is I take it outside the line, I get it. Do you see the post I did on Instagram the other day? I hold a shot from 150 yards or so, and I said it didn't count because I early extended. The swing looks
No, I
horrible.
didn't see that.
Swing looks
Oh,
horrible.
you caught a hole out on camera? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I had all go on all my shots on Instagram. They're all good shots, at least the ones I post.
Yeah, you just
But the
didn't post all the
swing,
ones where you
the
shanked it 80 yards right of it.
Yeah, but the swing doesn't look good. Well, I mean, some people would say, oh, yeah, well, you're just catching the good ones on camera. It's like, well, I also play like tee to green to like a +3, +5 with very minimal practice. So the swing doesn't have to look pretty. If you look at my swing 15, 20 years ago, it would look nicer than it does now. It would hit more positions that would be deemed orthodox or textbook. 20 years ago, now it looks uglier, but I play better. So go figure, right? I just focus on impact, focus on things that matter, stop worrying so much about early extension. If I ever want to fix early extension, there'll be a reason for it. If I'm thinning it or hitting out of the toe, those are things that early extension could cause because you're getting farther away from the ball. Lots of people are like, oh, early extension causes heels. I'm like, you'd be surprised. Um, yeah, if you're thinning it or hitting out of the toe, then I try and fix my early extension. But if I'm not, I don't worry about it. So this idea of perfection really, if anything, I would say it's held back more golfers than it's helped. So that's what I'll have
Yeah.
to say about that.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about practice, obviously, but don't be afraid to get messy and outside of the box. Whether that's with the shots you're trying or what your swing looks like, or not using. I mean, I don't really use alignment sticks ever. I'm not against them, but thinking you have to have everything perfectly straight, pointing to the same thing, and then you get on the golf course and there are no straight lines, and you're like, wait, where am I aiming? This tee box is pointing me left, and my body's this way, and like that sometimes does not translate well to what you're faced with on the golf course. So when my lines get screwed up, I'll put myself on the opposite side of the range. Sometimes when the golf course is pushing me to the right and I feel uncomfortable, well, I'll like go to the other side of the range and kind of simulate that shot, being like, oh, I have to hit to this green over here, but I'm on the right side of the range. No alignment sticks, nothing. I'm trying to recreate that scenario and feel it. And recreate that discomfort that I'm feeling on the golf course in this practice environment. Like that to me is more efficient, I think would be the word I would like to use with practice, not perfect.
I've seen so many people who practice with it. They've always got an alignment stick on the ground on the range.
Yeah,
And when they get on the course, their alignment is horrible.
yeah,
It doesn't translate
it's like
as much.
bowling with the guardrails on.
It doesn't translate as much as you think it would be. Again, this is logical, right? That if I practice with alignment stick down on the ground every single time, I'm going to be good at aligning on the golf course. But the actual skill of aligning on the golf course well requires that you line your body up without an alignment stick there. So you have to
Yeah.
figure out how to do that. Now, I and most professionals use intermediate targets in order to do that. And so, that's another myth, is that you have to be lined up perfectly parallel to play good golf. Sure, you can do that, but you can also be a little left or a little right. It's more that it's consistent. But train again, I'm not against alignment sticks, but once they become a crutch for you, that's a
Exactly.
problem. And I see
Yeah.
so many, and I've been there, where I put alignment sticks on the ground and that causes me to disconnect from the target, right? Because you've got the alignment stick down now. You don't have to worry about mentally connecting to that. And I know everybody says, well, some people would say, well, alignment stick is fine if you are connected to the target mentally. I don't
It
think most people would be there. I think once that alignment stick goes on the ground, they're like, all right, I can focus on my swing now. They lose perception of where the target is in space.
You know where I actually think the straight lines do the most damage is, or potentially the most damage, is with putting. So, golfer who has that training aid with the straight lines on it, straight back and straight through stroke, or just like same putt over and over again. And then you get on the course and it's like, well, this is a 3% right to left break that's downhill. And it's like, I don't have my straight lines anymore. Where am I? Again, I'm for it to kind of dial in your kind of bread and butter straight putt, but you also have to putt a lot without any straight lines. Like I had one of those perfect practice putting mats a few years ago and it has straight lines on it. And it's great if you want to roll putt after putt straight, but I would intentionally move the ball on the right side of the mat. So I actually had to putt diagonally across it and it would like make it more of a visual challenge to hit a quote unquote straight putt diagonally across this mat. So I would kind of go back and forth between the two when I was really working hard on my putting because I was like, okay, I want to prove to myself that I can hit a putt perfectly straight over and over again. Great, dial in my face control. But now I've got to somehow simulate the discomfort of being on the golf course. And you set up to some putts and you're like, yeah, this one's, I know it's breaking left, but I feel like you just get a little uncomfortable with alignment sometimes and you have to kind of live with that. There are no straight lines to help you. So, yeah, I think with putting straight lines, I actually love training aids that have like that arc on it, like the Vizio training aids. Is that Phil Kenyon's
Yeah.
company? I love arced putting training aids. I have a putting mirror that has an arc on it. It helps me with my alignment with my shoulders, but it also has an arc. It's for Seymour putting for the actual putting stroke, which is not straight back and straight through. There's an arc to it. So yeah. Anyway, we're going off on tangents here.
Well, we can stop there. We've done our hour.
Yeah, well, I think yeah. So what did we cover? We covered golf balls, premium budget, more of a metaphor on does everything need to be perfect for you, and like will this, think about things in your game, whether it's a golf ball or something else that you might be investing in, and take a step back and being like, is there going to be a massive tangible benefit here or is it a small refinement? If it's a small refinement, fine. Do it properly, but then kind of move on from it. You don't need to obsess about it anymore. Yeah, there are differences in golf balls, but just get the right one or buy a good premium one and you're going to get pretty damn close to what you need. Or if you're someone who doesn't have the budget, doesn't play a lot, or is kind of a beginner intermediate player, like, yeah, the budget balls are fine too. It's not going to like change your score by 10 strokes. And then we covered
We
some
touched on
myths.
rate of closure, old ball flight laws, face position needing to be square, drive for show, putt for dough, perfect practice makes perfect. Some of the myths are being proven wrong or called into question by the latest data.
Hmm. So, all right, we'll wrap it up there. You can give us more questions and topics to cover at Adam Young Golf adamyounggolf.com/survey. And Adam, that's where everyone can find you on adamyounggolf.com, correct?
Yeah, while you're there, get into the strike plan because I'm going to do a module on it this month, end of this month. So it'll either be start of September, end of August, where I'll be talking on arc depth. So if you're not already in the strike plan, get into it because it'll only be there for a month. John, where can people find you and your content?
Check out the four foundations of golf and my YouTube channel. I'm up to like 25 plus videos now. John Sherman Golf, Jon. I'm not a John. You can find my stuff there. And thanks for everyone for listening. And we'll see you next time with a new episode.